My name is Judy Music. I am one of the directors of Berea Academy, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this Monday evening for an opportunity to talk about educating young people in kindergarten through 6th grade. We are recording this session. We had several people request that we record it so that they could watch it at a later date. So if you are a person that is not really comfortable with the idea of having your face out there on a Facebook link or something like that, you can certainly turn off your video. That is not a problem whatsoever. Also, keep in mind that your names are visible. So if you wanted to change your name that is showing up on the screen to a different name for privacy or for your personal preference, feel free to do that at any time that you might want to. For those of you that are still logging on and are just new coming on, we want you to be able to submit questions at any time. The easiest way for you to do that will be if on the bottom of your toolbar you click the button that says chat, C-H-A-T. It has a little speech bubble. Over on the side, you should see a texting, messaging opportunity open up here. Some of you that are guests with us, we do not have any contact information for you. So Janelle Steen, if she sees people on here that she knows are not part of our regular community, she will probably be sending you a direct message via that chat box so that she can have some contact information for follow-up. We do have a document that we will be sending out to all of you at a later date, probably sometime tomorrow, that has the tips and tricks of the different instructors that have joined our meeting tonight. It has more questions and answers than we will be able to cover in our town hall meeting tonight. And there are links to several different resources to help you in the education of your children. So we want to be able to get that out to you and know how to do that. Let me see if there's anything else that I need to say right now. I think that we're good. We're going to go ahead and get started. I see that Beth Menemeyer has joined in down on my bottom left-hand corner. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton over to her. Beth Menemeyer is the other director here at Berea Academy. She is responsible for our operations. She is the mastermind behind our scheduling and makes sure that every spring when it comes time to plan for the new year, we are on track and measures our resources very effectively. So Beth is going to be telling us a little bit about Berea Academy, who we are, what we do, how we are hoping to assist you tonight. So please welcome Beth Menemeyer.
It doesn't work if you don't unmute yourself. Just a little tip there that you'd think after all these months I would have figured out, but not yet. Anyway, so it's my job to tell you guys a little bit about Berea, mainly because Judy said, what should we say? And I told her, and she said, well, that sounds great, go for it. So we are a homeschool learning center where we're focused on partnering with a homeschooling family to provide a traditional classroom experience for homeschooling children. What that means is that we feel that our families are doing a wonderful job at homeschooling. They are taking this journey that can sometimes be very, very challenging. That sometimes there are parts of that journey that you want someone else to do for you, which I totally understand. I can't tell you how excited I was to start handing off my upper level English language classes. And so from our perspective as an academy, we see our homeschool families and parents as partners in the homeschool journey that they're doing. They are still the ultimate authority in their homeschool, but they choose to entrust us with a little bit of that authority to host these traditional classes. We have K through 12 and academic classes, English, science, math, all of those, but also supplement enrichment classes like foreign language, arts, movement, things like that. I have a feeling I'm supposed to do something next.
No, if you are good, thank you very much. We are going to start off the town hall information sharing here with some tips and tricks. Now, I told you that every teacher that is on screen here has their tip and trick to share with you, but we know we don't have time to cover everybody. So we have selected a few teachers who are going to talk a little bit about what they have found to be helpful in their own homeschooling journey. And I'm going to start with introducing Lisa Jackson. Lisa, give a little wave so they know which part of the screen to look at over there. Lisa is a veteran homeschooler who has raised a number of children for a number of years in the homeschool environment. She is a new teacher here at Berea, and this year she is part of our Core Concepts program and is teaching U.S. history, presidents, and geography. So Lisa, why don't you go ahead and share your trick of the day for elementary education?
Well, when I started homeschooling, I was very, I thought I had to have every page in the book done. And I drove myself crazy, every chapter, every test. And I think by the time my oldest kids got through elementary school, I was like, this is not good. Luckily, I had more kids to come through that I could to make some changes. But I would say be flexible, and that's one thing I had to learn the hard way. I had broken my foot and continued to just do school with my foot elevated for like 6 weeks. I should have taken a break in there, and I didn't. So be flexible, and I am very organized, and so I think it's great to make a plan in the beginning of the week, but it's going to change. And so you just have to roll with it. I've learned that the hard way as well. And I totally love homeschooling, highly recommend it. We'll continue doing it with the rest of my kiddos. There are hard days though. Like, let's be honest, there are days I wanted to call my husband, who I called the principal and said, I'm done, find a new teacher and principal. And that's okay. There are going to be hard days. It's worth it in the end, 100% worth it.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any other teachers that want to do their add-on about the flexibility that is required when you are a homeschool mom? All right, then I'm going to go ahead and introduce our second trickster of the night. Jen Hogan has homeschooled a number of children at a variety of different ages for a number of years. She is a veteran of veterans, and Jen Hogan is one of our science teachers here at Berea Academy. She teaches biology for the high school level, but then she also is involved in exploratory science, very much discovery-based science for children in our Wonder and Explore program. So Jen, what is the trick of the day that you would like to share this evening?
Thanks, Judy. I know it's a real high priority for a lot of us to make sure our kids grow up with the love of learning, and sometimes that can be really daunting. So a couple things to make that easier. Number one, don't make reading a punishment, right? That's kind of obvious, but sometimes we can want something so much that we force it and get the opposite result of what we're looking for. My mom instilled a love of reading in all of us by installing a bookshelf behind the toilet in the bathroom. And that was probably the single most important thing she did. My version of that is to have a lot of books in the bathroom. And then one summer I bought a whole bunch of used books that I thought were really good literature and really character building books. And I snuck a bookcase into my boys' bedroom and just loaded up with good reading. But they each have their own taste. I have one who loves science fiction, another one who's really interested in certain points in history and will read nonfiction. She'll read historical novels about that time period, things that wouldn't attract me, but they're reading So I try to be patient with the, sometimes the graphic novels are important to them or things like that. So I let it be a mixture, and if they're interested in reading, then they're open to, you know, slipping in some classics too. And the other huge thing is reading out loud. You know, if they're going off on tangents and there are things that I really want them to hear, or they haven't quite grabbed onto reading as a hobby, as a lifestyle yet. Actually, even if they're doing great, we read out loud. I have an 11-year-old, and the first thing she wants to do on these summer days is have me read a chapter to her from our book that we're on. And then my husband reads at night. We're going through The Hobbit for probably the 5th time, because the younger ones don't know it. So he'll read a chapter in the evening, and it is sweet, sweet family time. And that really shows them that we value learning too. And we value the reading, and they see us reading. So it's one of those things that if we surround them with it, it's hard for them not to pick it up. That's it.
That's great, Jen. Anybody else, if you have a comment about developing readers? Oh, Mrs. M has a comment. So I will defer to her in just a moment, but I have a question for you, Jen, before I pass it off. And that question is, when your husband is reading The Hobbit, does he take on different voices and for the characters? Like, does he kind of act it out as he reads it, or is he just reading it in his regular dad voice?
He definitely has different voices for the trolls and some of the different characters, which makes it a lot more fun. But just to hear their own dad's own voice is rich too. You know, if you've got someone who's a natural born Irish storyteller, that's a total bonus. But for them to hear their dad read out loud, I mean, for us, coming from us moms too, but either way, it's so valuable.
I love that. Mrs. Mannemeyer, what would you like to add in here?
So teaching my children to read is something that is actually very, very dear to me because of my personal experience. My oldest seemed to have fallen asleep on a book and learned how to read overnight and wake up with that knowledge. And she just soaked it all in so thoroughly. And then I was really struggling to teach my second one to read. And I began to become very, very frustrated with it. And I was working really hard to make sure that our reading lessons that I wasn't exposing that frustration to him. And I just didn't understand what our obstacles were. And it just became this battle about learning to read. And then I discovered he needed glasses. He physically couldn't see the words. And I carried guilt about that for a long time because I thought, maybe a teacher in a classroom might have caught that, the signs of a vision problem or something like that. And by the time we got his glasses, he didn't like reading. Reading was a chore that he hated. And it was comic books that bridged that divide for him, and graphic novels where you could pair the visuals with the words to really make a story. And now he himself has actually been taking on the Lord of the Rings series. After he finished The Hobbit, he's tackling the whole trilogy. And he told me recently he does not remember a time when he couldn't read. He does not remember a time when he didn't love reading. And so just as an encouragement for a moment, that even when you think you're stumbling a little, how they perceive that and how that plays out in their lives, it can happen in ways that you wouldn't predict. And so I'm very thrilled to say that he's an incredibly wonderfully read young man now.
That is great. You know, all of the different subjects that our children need to learn while they are in school are critically important for different aspects, but reading seems to be that foundational core that everything else grows from. Berea has a summer reading program, and one of the books that the students are reading has a quote in it, some advice that the father has given the teenage daughter. And she was saying that she didn't like books and she didn't want to take the time to read. And he told her that reading is your ability to understand words. And when you can get words into your brain, then later on you will know when and how to get the words out of your brain into your mouth and out into the world. And that is the greatest gift that you can have. So I love those ideas. I noticed over here in the chat, somebody said that when our kids were young, some of the best lessons happened while the kids hid in the blanket fort. That really stretched me. And I'll say most of my kids do their reading not at a desk, mostly not in a chair either. I still have high school students that make forts, and they read inside of their forts. They hang upside down from trees. A lot of reading in car trips. We do a lot of car school reading. So that's great. My next tip person that is going to be speaking is Katie Brooks. Katie is also one of those people who have been homeschooling in digits that are double digits. Let's put it that way. Her oldest are adult and out of the house, and so she has trained not only her own children, but she's done a lot of tutoring and a lot of homeschooling for other people's children as well. Katie has a special ministry where she reaches into inner city underprivileged families, and she takes over a lot of the educational deficit that some of those students are experiencing and fills in the gaps. Katie is a new teacher at Berea this year. She is teaching mathematics at the elementary level, and she's also teaching pre-algebra for middle schoolers and fundamentals of great writing, which is a grammar-based program. But Katie, talk to us for a minute about the tip and trick that you feel like you would like to share this evening.
Okay, well, one of mine, of course, was everybody's saying about reading, just giving your kids a love for reading. So I won't go on about that one. The other thing was that I really struggled with as a homeschool mom was the struggle of being a policeman to my kids and like, oh, you've got to get this done. And just in some ways hurting my relationship with my kids because I was determined they were going to get whatever it was done. And I really had to work on that and just chill out and just, if they don't get the work done, I mean, we have to have standards and stuff. So I don't know that I quite all figured out the right way to handle it, but I know I did have to stop and work on relationship with one particular child instead of being so committed to getting what I wanted done. And then the other thing is, this is just a funny thing. We, in our house, instead of having snow days, we did beautiful days. So when there was a beautiful day out, we took off and didn't do school that day and went hiking or just got outside. So that would be my one encouragement.
Thanks, Katie. Now, I see some teachers having some vigorous head nodding. Is there anyone that wants to do add-on to this particular topic here?
I do. One is the, we called them sunshine days. The sun was too bright and we couldn't see to do school. And then just, again, the relationship. When we started homeschooling, people asked, why are you homeschooling? And oh, it's all these academic reasons. And then by the time we were finished, I have 3 daughters. It was all about relationship. It was just amazing to be able to have those hormonal mornings. Chocolate was a school supply. And be able to stop everything and talk and pray, get out the Bible, do whatever needed to be done for that moment. And it was about relationship. And even now, our youngest still lives with us, but the 2 older ones are married, and the oldest one's over here tonight. She dropped off the puppy and she's out in our lake swimming right now. But they want to spend time with us, and that is more valuable. You teach them to have a love of learning, teach them how to read so they can read whatever they need them to learn, and to love the Lord and love each other. So
thank you, Dolores. For those of you who don't know, since I did not introduce Dolores, Dolores is also on staff with us here at Berea Academy. She is the department head for our arts department, and she herself is an artist. So she teaches watercolor pencils, mixed media, all sorts of different artistic classes at all age levels. So she has things for the little kids all the way up to the high schoolers. We are going to be moving on to questions. I know some of you are new into our town hall since we started, so let me let you know we want to answer as many questions as we can that you have. So if there is a particular topic that you would like us to talk about, please go ahead and type it in the chat, or if you need to do a hand wave like this because you haven't figured out where your chat's at, or if it's too much to try to chat and you don't want to spend all that time typing and would rather have your time talking, please do so. We want to get as many of your questions, your specific questions that you have, you know, why you came on to this call tonight, what you were hoping to get out of this experience. Please go ahead and let us know that. And we have some questions that have been pre-fed to us. Some people were not able to attend, but they said, would you please talk about these items? And each of our teachers has chosen a question that they have had to address in their own education of elementary aged students. We will, again, not be able to talk about everybody's question and answer, but we have selected a few, and we're going to go ahead and take those. So Beth, I am looking over here at the chat, and I believe that there is a question that says, wondering what options there are for socialization and how attending classes work. So Beth is going to introduce the answer, and we'll probably call on some of the different veterans here to give their response as well.
So we as an organization, our primary focus is actually an academic experience, whether that's in the arts or in English, whatever subject it is. We don't put a strong emphasis on actual socialization in the sense of having events or, you know, field trips, things like that. It's that there are other groups in the area that are doing that beautifully, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And also, that still comes up occasionally within our organization. More importantly, one of our goals as an organization is to really pay attention to how a group dynamic changes something. And so peers, in my opinion, in our opinion, and our philosophy in classrooms, is that peers have a lot to offer each other. That when we're in the classroom, it isn't just about the teacher imparting knowledge to the student. It's also about students learning how to talk with each other, how to interact with each other. And I'm going to give you an example, and then Janelle, I'm going to throw it your way so you can talk a little bit about how you use the group dynamic in class. For example, I have previously taught a grammar class, and I had one student who the concept just wasn't coming in. He asked me, I explained it, he asked a couple of other questions, and it just wasn't clicking for him in a reasonable way, in a meaningful way. And so I took myself out of the equation, and I invited his peers in and asked them if they had a perspective on the concept that they could share. And one of his classmates, knowing him and his hobbies and interests, phrased the entire concept in terms of superheroes, where this was this character and this part was this, and imagine what happens when they get together. And like, it was this whole construct of communication based on superheroes that I could have never done because I'm just not versed in that particular form of knowledge. And so as a teacher, we see that it's not simply socialization about, you know, getting together and having a good time. Socialization is also about learning to communicate effectively with other people in your group, whether it's your teacher or one of your peers. And we really stress with our teachers that we really want to understand that we have a group opportunity and we want to utilize that group dynamic as much as possible. And Janelle, you're really good at that. So if you want to share just one or two things you do in your classroom, that would be great.
Sure. So I know we're encouraged to be there about 10 minutes early in our classroom, if we can, or outside the hall, outside the door, and about 10 minutes after to linger, because some of that is wonderful time to minister, to listen, to take part in the conversations that's going on. And also about the first, if we have a 2-hour class, maybe even the first 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. And on my history final this past year, I had a extra credit question, and it was like, what was your favorite thing about our class? And a very shy, quiet girl said, the first 5 or 10 minutes and the last 5 or 10 minutes where we wrap up, where they're able to just have free talk, or they're able to share with their neighbor, or they're able to share with a group of what's going on in their lives, both positive and negative. We could also be praying for someone, or someone's, grandmother just passed away. And I was just surprised that a very quiet person, actually, that was their favorite part of our history class, with all the dynamic things going on. That was an important part of it for them. So it just reminded me that not to just dive into the subject right away.
Absolutely. And to the second half of the question, as for how does attending class work, most of our classes meet once a week for either an hour, 90 minutes, or 2 hours, and that's dependent on the subject and the age. Like our movement classes, like the self-defense class that Mrs. Maxwell leads, is 60 minutes, and it takes all ages. But then our high school academic classes are 2 hours. So that's on the class catalog and schedule. And then we expect students to be in class when they can, though we understand that sometimes things come up, illnesses come up, whatever, even vacations come up. And we just ask parents to communicate with us about that so that we can help students stay on track when they can't be in the classroom. And then there's homework that they are expected to do throughout the week that will help them be meaningful participants in the classroom experience when they are there. And that homework level and type changes based on their age and the type of class. So I mentioned Mrs. Maxwell's self-defense class. Ideally, those students would be at home doing their warm-up exercises every day so that they can continue to build that muscle and strength. I also know that my particular children in her class are not good at that. And so she encourages them, but she doesn't shame them when they are in class because they haven't made that kind of improvement. So it's a balance between expectations and grace and reality. Like the reality is a 10-year-old is just not capable of the kinds of things that an 18-year-old is capable of.
I would like to add on just a little bit more about the socialization part of the question before we move on to another question. As an example, last year during our academic year, we did have some activities that were not primarily academic in nature. We did have a party in the fall, a pumpkin palooza, bonfire and pumpkin carving. We did have a Christmas party where we did minute-to-minute games and activities. And also, we encourage our student population to be involved in service opportunities. So many times we had students go out and do homeless ministry, do different types of fundraising, if that was something that was of interest to them, have them develop projects. And what we have found is that the social part, the socialization, has developed very organically and very naturally amongst our student body. I have 3 children that have attended Berea Academy, and their best friends are also students because they have developed that bond of relationship inside of the organization. These kids are great at making informal gatherings, at figuring out how to communicate during COVID-19 quarantine shutdowns, and maintaining relationships. So there is a lot of informal socialization that happens there is some social activity, but as Beth said, if socialization is the primary reason you would be interested, then there are a lot of homeschool support groups that do a variety of open activities. Now, we do have field trips and things like that, but generally, we tend to try to build the community of the students that are in our population, and we only have a few activities that would be spread to that larger net. Jen has waved a hand. Jen.
And just a reminder that it's a drop-off program where it's not like a co-op where the parents are expected to stay in the building. And then if there are gaps in the student schedule between classes, that there's a supervised study hall where the leader of that is not a taskmaster. She creates an environment where they can study, but they also have a chance to visit with classmates if they can do that appropriately. And there is time over lunch if the students are there through that time as well, where they really enjoy spending time with each other too.
Beth, I see a new question has risen in the chat, and that is, how many kids typically attend a class, and will there be precautions in place for COVID in the fall?
So previously, our class size limit has been 14. For a few very popular classes with very experienced teachers, we have had maybe 15 or once we had 16 in there, but we try to keep it to 14 because the smaller class size is just such a valuable experience. And part of our COVID preparations for the fall has been that about 4 to 6 weeks ago or so, we decided to proactively limit our class sizes to 9. Because that way we can have a normal class setting and we have 9 students plus teacher makes 10, and 10 groups of 10 and under was a magic number for a while. So we're hoping that that helps us continue to meet in person, whatever happens. In addition to changing our class size to a limit of 9, we also have our last few weeks that we were allowed in the building, we had put a cleaning protocol in place that involved the teachers cleaning the tables and chairs in between classes, not just at the end and beginning of the days. In addition to that, we're going to be adding a few more things for the teachers to do, commonly touched services like door handles. We'll be adding some bathroom cleaning, that kind of thing. The building is professionally cleaned once a week, which is something that our host church does for themselves, and we get to take advantage of. We have not confirmed a plan regarding masks. It is our preference to not pursue masks because it is very, very difficult to speak through them. And we're very concerned that a teacher will be ineffective if they're required to wear a mask. However, for any parent, student, or teacher who feels that they should wear a mask, we will absolutely support that. It'll just fall under our dress code. As long as it's not offensive, go for it. So what am I missing? Oh, also, we typically at this point in time, our enrolled students would already have received their invoicing for the upcoming classes. We are holding our bill, sending out the invoice until the end of July, and then we'll be holding deposit of payments until the end of August. And that way, if we do need to cancel classes, it'll just be avoiding your payment rather than trying to refund a payment. And then we are developing a schedule for what classes would be appropriate to move online, to begin online. There's all these factors. So we were able in March, when the initial lockdown rounds happened, our teachers, our parents, our students, they jumped in with us, full head on, 2 feet, freezing cold pool water. And we did not lose a teaching day because we shifted to an online position. And teachers were able to fulfill their lesson plans as they had expected back in September, which was just an amazing accomplishment. And so what we're looking to do this year is to understand what classes are suited to be moved online, all that sort of thing. And as we get closer to September, we'll be making more final, flexible final decisions based on how the situation has played out so far.
Beth, could you also talk a little bit about our non-contact with materials for fall and our use of outdoor spaces? Because that would probably help a little bit as well.
Yes, so the campus that we meet in has a lot of outdoor space, some of which is even at picnic tables under a pavilion. And so we've always enjoyed it when teachers take students outside to have class, because the kids love being outside in beautiful weather. But we'll actually be more trying to encourage it and enable it. In addition to that, normally each year we have what we consider a classroom resource tote that has things like dry erase markers and extra pens and pencils, things like that, for the teacher and students to utilize during class. What we are attempting to do is shift away from a classroom tote and to a specific teacher supply bag, where each teacher has their own supply bag, so they're not sharing supplies from teacher to teacher. And then we're also working on creating a system where the students can have a supply bag of their own that they can actually leave on campus. And then their parents are not stuck in that position of, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this? Instead, kind of putting it all in their pack, labeled with their name on it, stored on campus when they're not there.
And adding on to that, we will do a lot of electronic submission whenever possible of papers, so that there's not papers being handed, back and forth, trying to reduce contact there. The students will have their own whiteboard markers, so if they're called up to the board to write on it, they're not having a point of contact there. We're going to do everything that we can to make it as safe as possible, and we do have our remote education plans and protocols in place should the situation of the world at that time require us to move forward in that way. All right, so remember, you can put your questions over here in the group chat, either publicly or privately, as you prefer, at any time. But Beth is going to go ahead and field a few questions and introduce some of the other teachers that are on here in accordance with what has been known to be popular questions amongst people dealing with elementary aged kids.
So we did have a couple questions posted to us on Facebook that I'm going to farm out to my fellow teachers. Brittany, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Brittany is part of our Core Concepts program, where she's going to be teaching a reading class. There are two classes for the Core Concepts program that focus on literature. One is called Literature and Love, which is going to be taught by Jessica. She's given a wave. And the other is going to be reading, which is going to be taught by Brittany. Brittany, and the books are the same. The students in the classes are going to be reading the same books. It just is going to be a slightly different approach. Children who are struggling to read are going to be a great fit in Brittany's class. She is trained. She has an official certification for tutoring dyslexic students, and she's going to bring all of that knowledge into the classroom to help these kiddos really grow in their comfort level regarding reading. Whereas Jessica is going to be working with students who are more advanced readers, and they're going to have the opportunity of digging a little bit deeper into that experience and level of literature. So Brittany, my question for you from Facebook, how do you gauge teaching your children and their accomplishments without getting really bogged down in like the burden of it?
I think that with children, you need to gauge on their independent little tiny accomplishments. Sometimes it can be very daunting to have a child who's struggling, and it can be very heartbreaking. But if you focus on the little things, and you're like, oh my goodness, they learned how the spelling rule, and they learned how to apply that now, and just focusing on that can be wonders.
Is there anyone else who would like to contribute to that as well? How you as a parent or a teacher don't get, weighed down and stay engaged? Look, they're all very thoughtful. I've put them all on the spot.
I would go ahead and add that when you're trying to evaluate your child's academic progress, don't expect that your child is going to make a similar paced progress amongst every single academic subject. That you're homeschooling, and one of the benefits of that is they are going to grow and develop in a very unique way. I had one child whose language arts ability was way up in 10th, 11th grade, you know, in terms of grading and things like that, back when he was in elementary school. But his math was behind grade level. So there's going to be like this up and down. And yes, you know, we don't want anyone to get so far behind that they have a problem. So I'm not saying ignore the areas where they are weak, but celebrate those strengths and realize that the boundary of what is acceptable at their grade level is pretty wide. So as long as they are continuing to make progress and they have not stalled, then you're probably fine.
And don't compare. Know your child's strengths and work with that.
And I would just add, my personal experience has taught me I can't throw myself under the bus. I need my own time to recharge and rest in our homeschool, or everything just falls apart. Just like they need a break sometimes, I need a break. And I often fall into that trap of, I'm not just a teacher, I'm a mom, and I have to cook dinner, and I have to grocery shop, and I have to do the laundry. And so a break doesn't become a break becomes shifting to a different type of work. And when I do that to myself over time, I become so run down I can't do any of the work. And so I would encourage moms, even when you have young children who need so much from you, continue to actively engage in that break time for yourself so that you can refresh. And then, okay, so shifting gears a little bit, the next question in my list is actually about courses for young kiddos. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to shoot things over to Jessica, who's going to talk a little bit about our Wonder and Explore program, which is targeted at kindergarten through 3rd grade. So Jessica, you're on.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I just realized as you shifted gears to me that I don't have like the actual rundown of the order of classes, so that's handy. Anyway, I'm Jessica. I'm actually co-teaching this program with the fabulous Jen Hogan. Give a little wave, Jen. I'm so excited to be working with her. This is a new program. This is going to be our K through 3rd Wonder and Explore classes that you can take a la carte. So if you just want to do an art enrichment program, or if you just want to do the nature, what are we calling the nature one, Jen? Science and nature. Science and nature. You can do that. However, what I really love is that every single class is going to be intersecting with the next class, and there are going to be concepts that we're going to be taking from each one and building on the next, and you'll see like just some very beautiful overlapping there. So we will, I believe, start out our day with the I'm so sorry, I don't have the names in front of me at all. It's our world cultures class, I think is what we're calling it. And that will touch lightly on geography. I do want them to understand like some of the core concepts of geography, but really we're going to focus on the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feel of something, the fabric, the color, the art, a little bit of the history of that place. Like I'll probably have them learn to count, you know, maybe 1 through 10 and learn some key phrases in that language, and be listening to recordings, and just to give them a feel of like, what is God's world about? Like, it's not my neighborhood. It's not just my little circle of friends. What's more than that? Like, it's beyond us, and just, there's just like so much to cover in that. I don't even know how we're going to fit into one class. So we're going to have to be picky. But anyway, for example, as I start to touch on art in the geography class, we'll be picking that up again later on in the day, and I'll touch base on that. So the second class of the day, Jen, you want to tell me what the next class of the day is?
Yeah, it's the nature science class.
Okay, go ahead and jump in then.
So I get to work with the kids outdoors as much as possible through as much of the year as possible. And a lot like what Jessica's going to do with them in the world cultures and geography, of really engaging all their senses and all the different ways that children learn through stories and touch and hearing and being active. We're going to take that outdoors and apply that to the bigger world that they're becoming aware of out in nature, and how they can use all their senses and use their own curiosity. That's going to be a big piece of it. I have my lesson plans and things that I want to expose them to in nature, but we're really going to pay attention to what do they wonder about, what are they curious about, what's grabbing them, and help them to honor the fact that they're educated by what they're interested in once we get outside, because there's so much on this big, beautiful property that we have at Southgate to be interested in. So we're going to run around and climb trees and get dirty, and then also learn to be really quiet so that we can sneak up on nature. And then they'll be ready for a break and have lunch with each other and a little recess time.
Yeah, that will give them some time to kind of unwind. They'll do that. And then I believe we come back for our Tales for Learning. And that will be a time for them to touch base. We're gonna separate the group at that point. To the younger kiddos will be more of a quiet rest time. You know, we're aware that if they're gonna be taking the entire program, they're gonna need some quiet. And we'll have, you know, kind of active listening, I would say, because they're going to be pretty young, but we'll touch on some different literatures. We've got some wonderful Beatrix Potter books. We have some of the Little House on the Prairie series and some Aesop's Fables in there. Just really cool. We'll have kind of some quiet reading. And then for the older kiddos, we'll have some more, you know, digging into the literature a bit more, some activity-based work, very light homework, probably not much at all, just something to kind of engage them in the literature itself. So that's the next thing on the list. And then after that, Jen is, do you remember?
You get to roll up your sleeves and do art and math with
Yes. Then I'm heading up that one as well. And that one will be fun because I'll be taking, so Jen, while she's outside getting muddy and learning all about science, they'll be bringing some of the elements of what they're doing through the day. Maybe not on the exact same day, but they'll be finding pine cones and finding this, and we're going to be using that in our art. So we are going to be getting up to our elbows. I'd love to do some tie-dye and natural dyes. We're going to be taking some ideas from our world cultures class, styles of art, color palettes from different countries, and just bringing it all the way through so that they have just a very interesting flow of information that kind of all goes hands in hand. We'll be doing that with the literature as well. So that is the bulk of our Wonder and Explore program. And of course, we're happy to answer any more detailed questions that you have.
And as Jessica mentioned, it's an a la carte program. So it's designed that you could arrive on campus, drop your student off, leave them there with a packed lunch, and then just come back in the afternoon and pick them up. For our younger students, they'll be escorted by either their teacher or a teenage volunteer mentor between their classes, and then we'll have eyes over them during lunch. The idea is that if you do decide on taking the entire day, you as a parent can rest in knowing that your student is being provided for the entire time. But you could just take a single class if just one or two appeal to you or your child. That's totally acceptable. And then some of them can be subbed into place. You know, Christina Maxwell does her self-defense, I mentioned. And if that is more suited to your child, then that would be an appropriate class for them instead of the world cultures class. So those are things that can be tailored to individual experiences as well. Jen, is there anything you'd like to add?
Mm-mm.
Excellent. So the other half of that question was also courses for an older student. And we're introducing a new program this year called Core Concepts. And it's level 1, kind of, because it's our first year. And Wonder and Explore is also a new program. What we're doing as an academy is forming these long-term views for our students. And so what that means is that in Wonder and Explore, if your child joins as a first grader and they read Beatrix Potter and Little House in the Big Woods, then the next year they're going to read a different set of books. That it's going to change, and they can stay with us until they grow into the next level of classes without repeating material. And that requires this nice long-term view. And Core Concepts 1 is another form of that, where we're targeting the 4th and 5th graders. We are blending them as a class because, again, peers have so much to offer. Even peers who might be more advanced, they bring that ability to talk to their classmates and to teach within the classroom. And then peers who aren't at that level, they get a great opportunity to learn from each other. So there's a lot of group opportunity within that class. We are offering it as either, again, a full program or a la carte. These are going to be a little more academic focused. And while Wonder and Explore is a single day, it runs all day Thursday. In order to get all those classes in for your core concepts, we have to be there both days. So those core concepts include English. I mentioned earlier that Jessica's teaching the literature class for that group, and Brittany's teaching the reading class for that group. We also have math, which Katie Brooks is going to be leading this class in. We also have our geography, which is going to focus on the U.S. presidents as well as some of our national parks, and Ms. Lisa Jackson's going to be leading that. Abby is leading our class in music and movement, and one of the reasons that we included that is because kids still need to move. They have all this energy inside them. And Abby, if you're on our call, you might have noticed she's a little young, and we love that. We love, as an organization and as an academy, we love to be able to provide our young people an opportunity to grow into different roles. Abby was a recess monitor, more like the gal in charge for one of our programs this previous year. She was absolutely amazing at it. She built wonderful relationships with these young people. And so when we were thinking about this class, she was our first pick because she just really connects well with them. So then we also have, I'm missing a few things. There's some enrichment classes that you can take. Janelle Steen is going to be teaching a Spanish class. Christina Maxwell has a Lego class, and Dolores has an art class that the students could take. And I think that covers just about everything. Probably should have had a list out. No, not science. Haha, I forgot about the science class. Yes, Christina's going to be teaching a human anatomy class for this age group. So we're going to try to cover all of the bases for them. So as a family, you could choose to take the whole program and get everything done you need to do, or you can just pick and choose the ones that you want. But before we kind of jump in, I would like it if, Abby, you could talk just for a minute about the class that you're going to be offering. And then from there, I want to jump over to Christina and give you a second to talk about Lego robotics for a minute.
All right, hi, thank you, Beth. So like Beth said, I'm definitely the youngest person on this screen, but I like to think that's a good thing. I'm really excited. I'm eager to teach this year. This year, I will be teaching a class in the Core Concepts program, Music and Movement, from 12:30 to 1:30 on Wednesdays. The goals of the class are to encourage routine exercise and foster an appreciation of music. You don't have to have any prior music experience. I'm totally ready to work with your kids where they're at and just have a lot of fun. We're going to spend time utilizing the creative parts of the brain. We're going to it's sort of a transition from elementary school recess to a more middle school structure for the day, but still have that less academically intensive period and just encourage the kids to move around and take a break from their intense studies. I'm going to split the class into 3 time blocks. The first 25 minutes, we're going to do more music-based activities. Second 25 minutes, we're going to do physical education. Hopefully, especially during these early fall months, get them outside as much as possible. I got 2 younger siblings and they get skittish. You want to get them outside, you want to get them moving, you want to get them running around. So we're going to be out there as much as possible this week, as the beginning of the school year. And then the last 10 minutes, we're just going to spend having free motion. They can talk with each other if they want. They can run around and play. Just that last 10 minutes of winding down and a little bit more of the recess that they're used to. So we don't really have a textbook for curriculum for this class. What I'm going to do is we're going to have a lot of different sports, games, projects, etc. And I'm taking those from all different places. Online resources, teaching books. The St. Louis Symphony has great programs and resources that I'm planning on using. For example, Picture the Music is a program that I did when I was a kid and I really loved, where the kids listen to a selection of classical music and then create an art piece inspired by it. And that was really fun. And I think it's going to be a great thing to introduce kids to classical music and letting them interact with it on something that's more their level. We're also going to do a lot of different cool sports like football, soccer ball, kickball. We're going to do some hula hooping, capture the flag. Maybe some winter days when we're stuck inside, we can even do yoga. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. The key is to get your kids moving and have them listen to some great music and just really enjoy it and have fun. That's what I got.
Thank you, Abby. Just to fix things, I misspoke. Christina Maxwell is not teaching the human anatomy for this age group. It got mixed up in my head. She's actually teaching the flying creatures class for this age group, which I think is exciting. It's a zoology-based class. The human anatomy is for the 6th grade level. So that's where I got a little confused. Sorry about that, Christina. But Christina is also teaching Lego robotics, which is open to beginning and 4th grade and up. So do you want to speak about that for a moment, Christina?
Okay. Actually, instead of speaking, I figured I'd just bring it down. It's easier to show it to you. So this is called an EV3. A lot of kids get really, really confused with my Lego robotics class. They come in, they think they're going to build with Legos. This is a lot of programming. Actually, Abby took Lego robotics with us. I had a club. She was one of my first ones. So the kids, they learn how to build a robot in the beginning of the first semester. They'll learn how to, because they're not like regular Legos. They're like tech Legos. So a lot of kids think they're blocks. I've had a few they were so disappointed at being in my class because they thought they were blocks. So they learn that, so then like the first couple weeks, they learn how to actually build with these Legos because they're kind of a little complicated. And they learn about the different motors, and they use the computers, laptops, Chromebooks, and they learn how to program and how to download it onto the EV3 to make it move. And by the 2nd semester, they've learned all that and they're able to do obstacle courses and challenges and things like that. So, that's all I have.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate that. And it's a good call to point out that it's not necessarily building Legos. It's really the robotics aspect of it, which my children have enjoyed greatly. There's an obstacle course that they have to, once they've figured out all the building and the programming, then there's an obstacle course to overcome. And they do things like make the robot drive up to the obstacle. Then they make something that makes them maybe grab the obstacle and then move it out of the way and then keep going. And it's really cool stuff. And it tends to be a lot of fun. And like everything, Legos get everywhere. So Christina, I have like a little bag full of Legos for you that we find at the end of the day when we're cleaning up. But that's just a little bit of what you can do in the 4th and 5th grade programs. So there have been a couple of questions in the chat, and I have answered them in chat, but also to just quickly go over them verbally. The question is, what does full-time attendance look like? And the short answer is it depends on the grade. For 4th grade and up, a full-time attendance is 2 days a week. Classes only meet once except math, which Katie, I'll let you mention in a minute. But they only meet once a week, but they need to be there both days in order to get their English, science, mathematics, social studies, and then their elective. And then for K through 3, a full program is on Thursdays from 10 a.m. until 3 or 3:30 p.m., depending on your choices. So Katie, just really quickly, do you want to talk about why math is twice a week instead of once a week like all of our other classes?
Well, basically, most of us know math, you just have to be in it every day. And so to try to cover it in one day, a whole week's worth of curriculum and go through it, that would be a difficult thing, especially for a 4th grader or 5th grader. So we just need a couple of times, and then hopefully that'll be enough for them to get through the rest of the week and have all the learning tools that they need for that. But I'm hoping to be able to be available by Zoom or whatever, just to answer quick questions if kids are getting tripped up and stuff along the way. So does that answer that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And actually that speaks a little bit to why our academic program doesn't start until 4th grade. And it is because younger students need more than once a week in order to retain those concepts. We tried academic programming in our first year for those younger students, and we found that they just can't hold it while they're gone. And since we're not seeing them every day, we don't have the opportunity to build the skills that they need in order to keep going when we're not there. And so that's why our K through 3 program is an enrichment program. As a parent, you can decide that it encompasses your whole homeschool, and that is okay. Because frankly, kindergartners don't necessarily need a lot. They learn so much from the whole world around them that it's okay if they're just doing classes once a week. But yeah, so K through 3 is designed as an enrichment where the older students might have a little homework, but it's not going to actually be geared towards a strong academic challenge in the way that you think of in a traditional public school system, where even kindergartners are there 5 days a week, and then they have homework 5 days a week, and there are these huge milestones that they have to meet, things like that. It's not how we operate. Children at that age learn best through, in many ways, and many times, through experience and just as sponging things up. So a kindergarten full program means you get to campus at 10 o'clock on Thursday by 10. You go to World Cultures, or you go to Christina's Kiddo class. Then you are back into nature science, and then break, and then Tales for Reading and Art and Math. And then we do have an option that if you have older students who are on campus until 3:30, because your younger student gets out at 3, they can actually go to the study hall for that half an hour, so you don't have to make 2 trips, or you don't have to sit around waiting for your other student to get out. You can time your traveling a little bit better. And the goal for K through 3, not just K through 3, honestly, our goal for all of our students is to meet them where they are in that particular subject range, and grow them into better mastery of the material by the end of the year. The challenge in that is it's really hard to quantify that in a numbers way. We want to say, well, we finished the textbook, check, we got everything done. But it doesn't matter if you finish the textbook if the kids don't understand what the textbook was about. And so our goal is to really meet the student where they are. If you have a kindergartner who is a fast reader and is really phenomenal at that, we want to help them get even more phenomenal about that at that. But maybe that same kindergartner is afraid of bugs, and we want to meet that there too. And we want to validate their experiences, and then we want to help them grow into a different perspective. And so it's really about, and that's part of the reason why our class sizes are so small, is because it allows us to build that individual relationship with the student that helps us know as teachers, are we meeting them where they are? And we really do believe very firmly that this is about the partnership with the parent and communication with the parents. And so even at any age, kindergartner through seniors in high school, we invite our parents to participate in a parent-teacher conference night. Those are on the schedule for the fall and for the spring. But at any time, parents are invited to speak with teachers about what they're seeing in the classroom, what's working, what's not working, how is it playing out at home, that kind of thing. And so the older the student gets, the more very specific the guidelines become. You know, Jen Hogan's high school biology class is going to have a checklist of things they'll be able to mark off by the end of the year. Her nature science class is going to be a lot more big picture than specifics, which makes it very hard as a parent sometimes to feel like, are we doing enough? I think that's the biggest trap that we fall into as homeschoolers, is this concept of, is it enough? Have we done enough? And I think that is something that we want to work. We as an academy, we accept and know that if we meet that student in their spot and we just help them grow, that's enough, whatever that subject happens to be. So Lisa, do you want to take a minute and talk about how, for these younger students, we can help them grow, and how you've done that with your students at home and how you deal with that is it enough kind of idea?
Before you do that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Jessica Tercios waved her hand there. I believe she wanted to have an add-on comment.
No, I forgot what I was going to say. You were saying something, Beth. I believe it was, I was just going to speak to the art and math adventure and how math at this age, for example, is very subjective. We can be talking, you know, in depth with each parent and kind of finding out what level our kids are at, and then using things that are very tactile. I'm going to be using things that, you know, I have 4 boys. They're, you know, between 9 and 16, but when they were little, art programs were not something that I could take on myself as a mom. Like, I just had kids crawling all over me all the time. And so I'm gearing this particular program and all of my programs to be like, what were the things that I would have loved my kids to experience that I could not take on as a homeschooling mom? You know, I want them up to their elbows in paint and mixing color and doing all these things that are maybe not as easy to do at home. So that's what we mean by enrichment, and just kind of, you know, taking where you guys are and where they are, and then just kind of encouraging them in those core concepts, but in very hands-on, very fun ways. So that was my little add-on.
There are core concepts. I don't think we often recognize that there are core concepts for math too that come way before them starting to memorize their flashcards. You know, they need to be learning that one-to-one correspondence, that when they put their finger down on one object, they give it one number. And the greater than, less than, there's the concept of even like adding, like how do they understand adding and what a fraction of something even is. And before you learn to multiply, you need to understand that multiplying means multiple groups of the same size all added together. And there are so many amazing tactile ways using the nature and the art materials to kind of ground them in those concepts, which will make mom's job at home so much easier because they already have this conceptual understanding of some of those grounding foundational math things that they get through that hands-on experience, kind of in other subjects.
Okay, so now you have to re-ask me the question because I got caught up in what they were saying. I'm a typical mom.
Well, and that's the thing, right? That so many of us are not, none of us are just one thing. None of us are just teachers or just moms or just whatever it is. We're balancing all of those things. And so we were just talking about meeting the student where they are and kind of moving them to the next level of understanding. And I asked you to speak on that a little bit, in part because part of the reason that we asked you about taking on this class is because your son, who technically would be too young for this class, is an expert in this field, and he's forced you into learning these things about the presidents and all that kind of stuff. And so I just didn't know if you had a comment you wanted to make on that idea of meeting a student where they are.
I don't, as far as Luke's concerned, my son, but I do with my older girls who have gone through Berea and are still, going to be taking classes next year. I have a daughter that struggles with math, and I saw time and time again teachers and administrators come alongside of her. She's a smart girl, but math is not her gig, and they met her where she was. And that is what I absolutely love about Berea. She wasn't made to feel, down on herself. And so, yes, I think it's just such a neat thing to see that it's like homeschooling at school. And I know that sounds maybe really, really simple, but I still feel very involved when I just was a parent. I felt like I knew exactly what they were teaching. I knew if there was little problems. I knew if there was a big problem. And that's kind of some of the reasons why we homeschool. And so I hope that answers it. It wasn't really based on Luke, but yes, Luke has taught me more than I ever need to know about precedents and states, and has been since he's been about, I think, 2.5.
No, that's excellent. And thank you for that parent view of Berea and meeting those students in their places. The reality is a student can't learn if we shame them and if we make them feel afraid of speaking in the classroom or having that experience. And that is not going to happen in our group. And so to keep growing our culture appropriately, Judy does things like hosting teacher in-service events where we actually provide teacher coaching in classroom management and various aspects of that. We do teacher evaluations so that someone actually comes into the teacher classroom and observes their interaction with the students and how they're managing that time. Younger, newer teachers are partnered with someone to really make sure that they have the resources they need to be successful. So I'm actually going to take that kind of question of meeting someone where they are and shoot it to Maggie, who hasn't had a chance to talk tonight, because that is what Maggie does. Maggie is teaching a class we call Worship Team for older students, where the students actually come together and form a band. And their goal is to learn how to function in the role of playing worship in that setting, and has been very successful. This year's group was just phenomenal. And in addition to that, Maggie also offers private music lessons where she teaches piano and voice. I'm very excited because all 3 of my children are on her schedule this year. So definitely Maggie in private lessons, I imagine that meeting the student in their spot is really, really key.
Yes, I'm sorry, I have a helper with me and she may be noisy. So if you hear it, my husband is home with all the other kids, but she's teething and was screaming hysterically when she was away from me. So here she is. But yes, especially for private music lessons, it's a great opportunity to meet the students where they are. And a lot of the things actually that other teachers were mentioning that build into other concepts, like number sense and things, there's actually a lot of reading skills in learning to read music because it's learning to read another language. So whether it's the little bitty kiddos, I mean, I've had 5- and 6-year-olds start with piano and they're learning to track from left to right. They're learning sound symbol correspondence. A lot of the same skills that you use in reading, you use in learning to read music. So it's really interesting to me, having taught both, language arts and math, and then also teaching music. We can of course do fractions with meter and time, and a half note and a quarter note. There's just a lot of cross-curricular content that's really fun to get to talk to, especially those younger kiddos. They start to go, oh, I did that in math class this week, or we talked about this in reading. So it's just a really fun way to be able to help them use those same number and literacy concepts, but also in music. It's great for their fingers, especially kiddos learning to write, all of a sudden using something where all 5 5 of their fingers on each hand has a different job, just helps with dexterity and fine motor. And since it is usually one-on-one or small group, I'm really able to figure out what do they like? Why do they want to take music? What type of music do they like? And then making sure that whatever it is, everything we do caters toward that interest, because kind of echoing what everyone else said, kids will put time and effort into what they like. I mean, I don't want to do something I don't like. So I always ask students, what do you like? Why are you excited about music? Why would you choose to take this class? And then everything we do is geared toward that, because I want them to practice. I want them to have progress. And the best way to do that is for them to love what we're doing. So meeting their interest and where they're at, whether they're a beginner or they've been taking for a long time, there's something that we can do together. She's talking on the phone.
She's adorable. I'm glad she joined us this evening. So yeah, just kind of in that same vein, this comes back to the partnership with the parents, where we want to involve the children and the students in that conversation, but we also want to involve the parents in the conversation. So I had a student at one point in my classes who she's very, very shy, and I did not know her before she was in my classroom. And I did not feel successful in engaging with her in my classroom setting. So I actually sat down and spoke with her mom. And I said, look, is it me? Is it like, what's happening here? What can I do? How is this? What is it that you as a parent want to see come out of this situation? Because I want to work towards success in that. And we were able to really just talk through that a little bit. And that's where, again, the smaller class sizes come in really to be important, because the more students you have, the harder it is to overcome that obstacle. So you guys have heard a lot from me and from our other teachers, which is fabulous. You guys are amazing. And I'm actually going to throw it back to Judy. We're running just a smidge behind now because I talked a lot. Normally that's Judy's job. And she's going to take us through wrapping things up. So just if you have been here and you have any other questions we didn't cover, you can email us, you can Facebook message us, whatever it is, and we will definitely be in touch and answer specifics that we didn't get a chance to tonight. So from me, thank you all for coming, and now you get to listen to Judy. She's this way.
Thank you. So 75 minutes is certainly not enough time to talk about all of the ins and outs of educating, training, loving, supporting young children between the ages of kindergarten and 5th, 6th grade. We would like to follow up with you. So if you have not had a direct message conversation with Janelle Steen to give her some sort of follow-up email, and you would like to have the resources that we have provided for you, please make sure that you do that before this Zoom call ends. You are welcome to contact us at any time through our website. It is bereaacademystl.org. Beth and myself are very happy to address questions. Any of the teachers that you currently see here are also very happy to talk with you, whether or not you enroll in a class at Berea Academy or not. We realize that this homeschooling is a community effort. Iron sharpens iron. We all benefit from the creativity and the support and the encouragement of one another. So we would love to be able to help you in whatever way that you need. If you go onto our website, you will see on each teacher's bio page, there is a contact form on the bottom. So not only can you reach Beth or myself, you can reach any of these people who have spoken here tonight. Talk to them about what your issue or your question is or your problem, and I guarantee they will give their very best effort to get back with you. Berea does have 2 more town halls scheduled for the summer here. We have one that is going to be dedicated to middle school. So if you have a child that is more in the range of the 6th through 8th grade, somewhere around there, we invite you to join us for that town hall. That one is going to be on July 13th, which is also a Monday night. It will also be at 7 p.m. and we'll try to go for that 75-minute time frame. And then in August, we're going to have our town hall for the high schoolers. High school academics is a whole different ball game. And I know people are concerned about test scores. They're concerned about college entrance. They're concerned about getting college credit, dual enrollment options, transcripts, all of that. We would love to help you navigate those waters. If you have a high schooler, our town hall meeting for high school is August 10th, which is also a Monday night. Every teacher that is on here has created a promotional video for their course. Most of them are up on our YouTube channel, which is Berea Academy Remote Learning. If they are not up yet today, they will be up soon. So if you want to get more information about their particular classes that they are teaching in the Wonder and Explore or the core concepts or the private music lessons or electives, you are welcome to watch them in video form. I would like to say thank you. You have been a wonderful guest audience here. You have had great questions, and we really appreciate the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, to introduce who we are a little bit to you. I think you're supposed to say like it, thumbs up, something like that. I don't know. But this is my thumbs up to all of you for taking this time on a Monday night to spend with us. And I believe 8:20 is not too bad. We're within 5 minutes. We will go ahead and officially end the call. If you had a question that you wanted to ask, but you really didn't want to ask in the public forum, you are welcome to stay on. And then after everybody else is gone, you can ask your question and we would be happy to talk to you. If not, have a blessed rest of your Monday night, and we hope to see many of you soon.